My name is Saad again. Thank you, Olia, for the introduction. I'm one of the consultants at Orbis, and today I will be taking you through a quick guided tour of our repository for business transformation called iServer. We've had some very nice presentations from Henri and Alexander around the high-level business transformation and how this is done in practice. Now we will go into the slightly lower level of the individual roles and all of the content that is put together to create this business transformation. So the daily activities around this as well. So I have 20 minutes approximately. I will be dividing this into 3 sections. So the very first section will be the actual creation of a repository. Yep, I think we're back. Okay, great. So first of all, we will look at the actual building of a repository. So this is putting everything together into one place. And then we will talk about how this information, once is in a central location, how we can turn this into some decision making and some knowledge. Thirdly, we will talk about sharing all of this information. So it is very useful and it's very important to share information that you have captured, share the decisions that you are making, gather feedback and comments. In our business relationships, in our personal relationships, communication is very important. So this is what we will finish on. Now, let's get started. So I've been working in EA for many years and also business transformation programs as well. Not only with Orbis, I've been with Orbis for about 5 years, but before this as well, I've been working on many business process initiatives, EA initiatives, business transformation initiatives, and so on. So I will give you my experience around what I have seen working and what I have seen failing in these programs and in these initiatives as well. Now, to begin with, we will quickly go over what is iServer. Now, before I actually go into the tool and I talk about the technicalities of the tool, I will show you my phone. Now, this is the fundamental of simplicity. So 10 years ago, we had touchscreens and we had mobiles, but it was not in a simple form. So Apple, of course, then developed this phone. And then we brought simplicity to a product, and now everyone is using a touchscreen phone, even though this technology existed before. So we are trying to achieve the exact same thing here. We are using what we have learned from consumer goods and simplicity, and we are bringing this to corporate, and we are bringing this to the operational side of business as well. So how do we do this? We use the simplicity of Visio, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And we put this all into one repository and we add additional functionality. So you are not moving away from the applications you are seeing at the bottom that you have been using for many years, but you are still having all of the powerful functionalities for your business transformation. So the tool will be easy to use, it will be easy to change, because what you are doing now will not be the same in a few months or a few years. So you can make the changes yourself. You're not tied to the vendor. You can do these changes yourself. Also, the training will be minimum. People will enjoy using the tool. The outputs will look great, and I will show you that all in a second now. So let's begin. So the first, of course, as I said, is building the repository. Now, what I have found is when we do not have a repository in place, people are still creating content, but this is in many formats, it's in many locations, it's difficult to find this content, and we are not adhering to standards, such as TOGAF and Archimate and BPMN for process. So iServer allows us to do this by putting everything in one repository. And let me show you now. So I will go into my iServer application. Here is iServer. And as you can see, it looks like a Office application. We have a start page. So anyone using this application will feel familiar and they can easily start to use this. The reason why this is important is because when we started IT architecture and business transformation, this was very technical. Now we are moving more towards business friendly. So as I said, ease of use that we have learned from consumer, we can now bring to corporate as well. And we are not only trying to please the technical people, we are trying to also please the business side, so we can all work together in one place. So let me dive into the repository now. I'm going to open the folder structure. So here you will see on the left we have our folder structure, and here all of our different team members will be adding information. So we will have on the left, you can see here, if I scroll down in blue, we have many roles, and they're all adding content into these different roles. So I will just move to the side here so my colleagues here can see as well. Now, I can show you some of the content I have been actually creating in my repository here. So as you can see, I have many different diagram types that I have been working on. These are all standardized through templates as well in the repository. So I will go and open one of these, and you will see the diagram opens in Visio, which everyone is familiar with. We have ribbons, we have standard stencils on the left, so everyone who is creating an application diagram is using the same stencil, and they will all have a similar look and feel, and they will align to standards. Now, together today we will go through one story, and the story is of Big Bank. So we all work for a bank today, and we are implementing a self-service machine in every branch of the bank. So this is the example I will show you today. So right now we are in the role of the architect for applications, and he is building the communications of those applications. Now, some of these applications will be in the repository already, some may be coming in from Excel import. Now, once I load iServer, you see this ribbon here, and this is all the functionalities you will need. So as soon as I click on this big save button here, this big commit button, this will transform this diagram and build this diagram into the repository and make it come to life. So all of these shapes that we are seeing, these will all become unique objects. So if for 1 second I go back into my repository and I show you the contents of this drawing, you will see every shape has automatically become an object. So the user does not have to spend many days on training. We have just learned that one button will bring this diagram to life, and we are continuing to use Visio. Now, if we go back to our drawing, we may then continue this drawing. So maybe we would like to add more objects now. So we will not now talk about these as shapes. We will talk about these as objects in the repository. So I can then ask iServer, please show me more objects. On the right-hand side, we have now another panel. From the left, we are creating new. From the right, we are reusing. So I can say, please show me applications. And in the bank, of course, we have many applications. So I would like to see my core banking system, and I will then drag and drop this and reuse this. But now I am curious, because if the core banking system is already in the repository as the object, where is this being used? So I can ask iServer again using one button, where used? So if I was to make a change in one place, if I was to change the name of this application here, this would update in all of these different diagrams that other colleagues are working on. Processes, business architecture diagrams, data models, because it's now one unique object for iServer. Now, we will for a quick second jump into a separate diagram. So we will take a look at something a little less traditional. So let's just wait for my screen to reappear. So behind those objects, we can have data. So behind the applications I showed you, we also have dates. So when the application will arise, when the application will retire, we are capturing additional information behind this. Now, what I can show you now is we can actually create, using the same information, more traditional sort of architecture landscape views, architecture timelines. So here I have now not boxes connected to boxes, I actually have a slider. So I can move between different phases, and I can see, okay, if I was to make a change to one of these phases, what the difference will be in my architecture. So I'll just close this very quickly and relaunch this diagram. Give me 1 second. So these are the exact same objects you have seen before. So we have, for example, CBS in the corner there, but now we are using the slider at the bottom rather than the connections to one another. So we can move this. Unfortunately, I think I've made some changes, so the slider isn't working, but the timeline usually changes and shows you different objects and so on. I can show you in the dashboard in a few seconds, this one here. So if we go back into the slides for a second here, this one we have now completed, so creating the repository and building objects. So that's step one. Then the second one is how to turn all of this information into knowledge. So this is the traditional data, information, knowledge. So we have captured the data, we have linked this together to make information, and now we will convert this into knowledge and assist our decision making. So if, for example, I was in my repository and we are, let's say, going back to our example of our application diagram, and we will use this CBS as an example. Now, for our decision making, let's say we would like to remove CBS. We would like to know, if we were to remove CBS or make a change, what other objects would be impacted? So I can go to the View Relationships button now, and instantly we can see all of the different objects that are going to be impacted once we make a change to CBS or once we remove CBS. And I can make this more interesting because I can visualize this. So instantly now, I can visually see, if I was to make a change to CBS, what is impacted in the business. So this could be our capabilities, it could be our processes, it could be our technologies. We could filter these, we could export this for our stakeholders, so they can instantly see, without having to go into each diagram one by one, if I make a change to CBS, these are the objects that are going to be affected. Now, if my architect also wanted to, they could start to reuse these relationships on the diagram. So not only can I reuse objects, I can say what is related. The same thing is appearing now here. And I can very quickly start to reuse content. And you will see connections will appear automatically if they exist in the repository. We do not have to rely on just Office documentation. We can also then have dashboards. So this is BI dashboards. This is SQL style dashboards. The same single source of truth in one location, Visio, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, is now powering this as well. So for one stakeholder, they may not even be concerned with the repository. They simply log into the link, and then they go through their catalog of applications, technologies, business processes, capabilities, and we can drill through and click down here. So we are seeing here the list of applications. We could then filter this and go into something that is more useful for us as a stakeholder. So here you are seeing now things like maybe more strategic business fit, technology fit, and so on. If I go back one step here, this is also a very interesting one. Again, this is the data we are capturing behind the object. So some people call this properties, some people call this metadata, all coming from the ease of use of Visio and Office. Timeline views. So this is what I was showing you in the Visio with the slider, for example. So here we can see when things are phasing in, when they are phasing out. Let's go back to our presentation here. So I'm just conscious of time. Now, when it comes to sharing, we have again made things very, very easy. So first of all, we will add everything automatically to a web portal, and I'll show this to you now. So if I go to my web browser here, this is a navigation page. Every stakeholder that will log in here will have a different navigation page. So my business people will have a different navigation page. My technical people will have a different navigation page. This is to make sure they are easily finding what they need to report on, they need to provide feedback on, they need to provide comments on. So let's start from the high-level strategy. Many times I am asked what is the difference between the iServer portal and SharePoint, for example. Now SharePoint is a very good tool, but it's actually storing content in a folder structure. But in iServer we are telling a story, and we are clicking and we are drilling down. And we are also connecting live, so as we update the repository, it will update the portal, and it's for an unlimited number of users. So you don't have any licensing implications here. So let's continue with our example of the self-service machines in the bank. So here is a Visio where we are showing our business programs from the business architecture side of things, our capabilities being delivered, the business motivations, and the projects. So this is high level, this is more for the C level. Now, if we go down more into the solution of our self-service kiosk, this is actually modeled as a capability in our business. So with any one of these, we can actually find out what we have behind this object in the data on the right, or we could click and drill down. And again, like I was telling you, it is a story that we are telling to the stakeholders. So we start with the strategy. Then we go to the capability. To deliver this capability, we will need these applications. You are seeing CBS again. We will need these people, and we will need these processes as well. Now, I may wish to see more about the process. So the process team in the repository has been modeling the processes for the self-service kiosks. So I will drill down again, because everything is linked in the repository now. We are instantly seeing a picture from strategy to the solutions, to the processes. Behind this process, we may also have other reports. So we may have work instructions, we may have activity lists, and so on. In fact, I can show you one example here. If I go outside of the portal, here's a Word document we may be sharing on the portal as well. Again, this is everything to do with that solution for the self-service machines. So we have contents page, we have requirements catalog. These are all objects in the repository. So as things will update in the repository, they will update in this document. So if someone updates the list of the requirements, this will update. If someone updates the context diagram that I showed you in the portal, the Word document will update. As we have a ribbon for Visio, you can see we have a ribbon for Word as well. That's all we need to learn, this one ribbon. And we can instantly continue doing what we are doing now, but everything is powering these visualizations and these dashboards. So all of this content here is connected to the repository. If someone was to update the process from the process team, this would update the processes for the self-service kiosk as well. Going back to our repository, as we start to end the demonstration now. So we do not always have to be creating diagrams and documents as well. We could be using things like object lists. So we can very quickly start to go through our objects. So here is a catalog of my applications very quickly. It could be processes or capabilities. We could export this in one button. We could quickly update the dates, and we could quickly re-upload this and update all of the information here. This would update our dashboards I showed you earlier, our timelines, and so on. Or we could have maybe things like this hierarchy view. So we can define our levels. I have picked a location, London. In London, I want to know the servers. When I click on the server, I see the applications. When I click on the applications, I could see any functions associated. So I could click through and see the differences here between these different object types wherever I wanted to. So finally, we have matrix view. So I can go into a matrix view here, and you can see again, I'm creating a matrix for my applications and technologies. This could be a CRUD matrix. It could be a RACI matrix, but it's all being powered by that one single source of truth in my repository from all of the users around the business. Going back to my slides to now summarize, it's very important to pick a repository wisely, because with business transformation, it is a change, and all change needs to be managed well. And the best way to do this is with simplicity, because if we look at enterprise architecture, for example, the fundamentals of enterprise architecture is to reduce complexity in the business and make it faster to make changes. So it's good to pick a tool that does not have complexity to manage your complexity. Also, we must build a culture, because of course, as I showed you, although we are continuing to work in 95% the same way, we must build a culture that everyone must now be using the repository rather than having the documents on their desktop and having things in different formats. We will all be using a standard repository. And finally, we must govern the repository well, because a repository is not the answer to all of your problems. You must be governing this as well. You must be making sure people are aligning with standards, changes are going through a process. There are things like naming conventions, and we can provide you with some more information around this if you require as well. I think from my side, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please do feel free.